Hi, today's guest on the Winning Teams podcast is Dirk van Reenen, who's the CEO of GoBundance, which is an organization that is really set up to help men and women live epic lives. I just find it really interesting. It's taken a mastermind to another level, but this is focused on, senior executives, business owners who, in the world that they operate in, it can be pretty lonely. And, how do they then find this psychological safety within a group where they can share with peers in order to help them to grow their businesses and also to kind of grow and develop their lives. So it's not just about the business, but it's actually a much more holistic. So it's very much for senior executives, senior leaders and business owners. What you'll understand is some of the core principles that are behind it, how this tribe of GoBundance can help people to live fulfilling lives, the tenets that underpin it, and also really the accountability that people can be held to in order to achieve excellence in their lives, however they wish to describe excellence. So, please head on over to have a listen to the interview with Dirk. He's a really good guy, really interesting guy, interesting background, and has had a successful career himself before he became CEO of GoBundance. Also, go over to the site, my own site, www.johnmurphyinternational.com. There's a load of assets over there. You can get blogs, you can get podcasts, you can get videos, you can get some training, and be delighted for you to consume those and get in touch. So in the meantime, sit back, have your sip of water, a sip of coffee, sip of wine, or whatever else it might be, and listen to Dirk. Dirk, it's great to have you here today. Thank you for turning up all the way from Texas to talk to me. So I'm really grateful to you for that.
Yeah, John, thank you so much for having me on the show. Excited to visit with you today.
Now, I mean, you've an interesting background because you've been involved with a number of businesses. You've started a number of businesses. You've ran businesses. You kind of built a real estate business up to over $800 million, which is no mean feat. And then you went and you started BERGflow, which is your own consulting business all about scaling businesses. But you, in 2019, you became CEO of GoBundance, which is an organization that started in 2013. And I just thought I was really interested in the concept of GoBundance and what it is. And I was curious as to how you became CEO, but also you might tell a little bit about GoBundance.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I ever heard of GoBundance was around 2015, and there were several guys that I were connected with, and I saw that they went on this amazing trip, and they called it a tribal gathering, a tribal summit. And I think at the time they were maybe somewhere like Lake Tahoe, and it was a winter event, so everybody was skiing and snowboarding and snowmobiling. But there was, at that point, I think about 100 people at the event, and they had some very notable speakers like Robert Kiyosaki, and it just piqued my interest. I was like, hey, what are all these amazing guys doing at this event, and why did I have not heard about it? So I started doing some research into GoBundance and started learning about who they are and why they exist. And essentially, GoBundance is a tribe that was really generated for the kind of core of the tribe is it's a tribe for healthy, wealthy, generous men who choose to live epic lives. Right, that's the core of it, and really kind of going into the genesis of GoBundance is that there were a couple of guys here, and it was David Osborne, Pat Hyben, and Tim Rode, and they've been really practicing this ritual of brotherhood for about 15 years before GoBundance ever launched. But they were all entrepreneurs, and they met at a different conference years ago. And what they did is started to hold each other accountable to reaching their goals. And as that started building in, they started adding adventure trips to it. They started focusing on their health, their relationships, and what they saw was just this powerful core starting to develop of truly men stepping up to really hold each other accountable, to challenge each other, to say, hey, how are you showing up in your relationships? How are you showing up as being a husband and a father right now? And what happened with the three of them is all three of them started experiencing really significant success in their lives. And what happened is they started kind of attracting more guys that wanted to be a part of that. So they added Mike McCarthy in, and then in 2013 they started kind of had a small event. They had I think about 26 people that showed up for the event, and fast forward now to 2019, going into 2020, we've got about 250 people in the tribe, men in the tribe, and we launched a women's division this year as well. But the whole core of GoBundance is that, and John, you've probably seen this with a lot of the executives that you coach and CEOs and business owners, but a lot of times as people become more and more successful, they become more and more isolated. And a lot of their success gets to the point where they're not even comfortable sharing it around the dinner table or when they're with their family and friends, because sometimes people can't relate to the challenges they have or the wins that they're having, so they don't feel comfortable like really sharing that. And what happens is they become isolated. So GoBundance was really built to bring people like that together that are really committed to high level of success, committed to growth, and truly living an unconventional life. And what they've done is they've just created a community where you can come in and share your challenges openly, like share your struggles openly, share your wins openly, be held accountable, get amazing advice and masterminding from other highly successful people. And it's just generated an amazing energy around it. I joined the tribe in 2016, and last year in 2018 we started talking a little bit about the growth of the organization, and they brought me in as CEO earlier this year and brought BERGflow in to really help them scale the organization now. So that's kind of the story behind it.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at that, how different is GoBundance to the kind of traditional Mastermind?
I think it's from what I've seen, it's very different because it looks at a more holistic view of who the person is, right? And we have a term in GoBundance that we use that's called whole life millionaire. And it's not just about, hey, how are you doing in business? Like there's actually 6 pillars that define GoBundance. And the first one is actually age-defying health, right? So there's a huge focus on the health and vitality of the person. The next one's authentic relationships. We also have bucket list adventures, extreme accountability, genuine contribution, and then horizontal income or passive income. So there's 6 core pillars that we focus on. And I mean, usually our masterminds start off early in the morning. So most of the guys are up by 5:30 in the morning, and they're starting their day with a pretty intense workout. Some people prefer to do, like a yoga session or something like that. But after that, people are getting breakfast, and then you head out for some kind of adventure, right? So whether it's our summer trip or our winter trip, we've got 2 really large trips every year, and then we've got smaller trips. But after that, we go out and play and have adventures. So whether that's hiking a mountain or snowboarding or wakeboarding, surfing, whatever that adventure is, you're going out and you're playing, you're getting your adrenaline going, you're having fun, you're laughing, you're shouting. I mean, you're just going out and playing at a really high level. We usually do that till about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then everybody's coming back in from all the different activities, getting cleaned up, and then we go into our mastermind sessions that last, usually somewhere from about 5 o'clock in the afternoon till about 10 o'clock at night. And what happens is after you've kind of had that strong start into the day, just physically eating healthy, and then you've just played all day, your level of creativity and the level of just like thinking big and outside the box and challenging each other is so much higher than kind of just getting up in the morning and going straight into a mastermind that's more kind of conventional type, right? So it really adds a different dynamic, and you're just kind of on a natural high that day because you did something really epic. You did something that may have challenged you, gotten you outside of your comfort zone, may have done something you've never done before, or done something better, or you had some competition that day with your GoBundance brothers. So it just puts you in a state where you're really tuned in, you're kind of really thinking big, and you're ready to kind of take on, the next level of life.
And do you? I mean, how often do you meet? How often, if you're part of the GoBundance, how often do I meet my, peers?
We've got, as I mentioned, we've got 2 major trips a year, and then we've got anywhere from 10 to probably 14 smaller trips a year. So there's a lot of opportunity. The next evolution that we've really started getting into now is more local and regionalized meetups. So we're starting to get pockets of density where we may have 10 or 15 or 20 guys that are within a geographic region where once a month now they're getting together. But outside of that, we've got a very active Facebook community. We've got a very active community in what we call GoPods. And a GoPod is going to be anywhere from maybe about 4 to 7 guys that get together, and they may have a weekly meeting or at least a bi-weekly meeting where they're checking in with each other. Could be anywhere from about 45 minutes to 90 minutes. And they're going through accountability. They're challenging each other. They're masterminding with each other. So there's a lot of connectivity within the tribe, even outside of events as well. So we really just want to create that conversation, that environment where somebody can truly, constantly be living on that edge of, pushing themselves forward, where they don't feel like they have to apologize for their success or or feel like they have to hide the challenges they're going through. I think like that's one of the biggest things is that, at a certain level, as people become isolated, they don't want to really talk about the challenges they're having, because at a certain level of success, it's like, well, at that level, you don't have those kind of challenges. And the truth is that, as you know, John, is like you have challenges at every single level. And sometimes, the business may be going well, but it's like the marriage that's struggling, or the relationship with your kids that's struggling, or, health struggles. So we want to be really open and authentic about those kind of conversations and create that environment for engagement.
And how do you determine, who enters and who joins GoBundance? Is there kind of what criteria is there to become a member?
Yeah, so right now the criteria that we have is number one is that you have to be at an accredited investor level. So in the United States, that's $1 million net worth or take-home income of $250,000 or more. We also have an application process because we really want to make sure that the right kind of culture comes into the tribe. So is somebody growth-minded? Are they somebody that is interested in growing in multiple ways? Are they somebody that is interested in contribution? Because that is one of our core pillars, right? So we want to see examples of, not just that you're a highly successful person, but I mean, how are you giving back? How are you giving back to your community? How are you giving back to your organization? Just what kind of impact are you making, that's being birthed out of the success that you're having? So, we really want to see that also that people aren't just coming in to be takers from the tribe. We want to see, hey, if somebody comes in, you're going to get a huge amount of value, but we also want to know, in what ways do you envision contributing value to the tribe? And that's actually a really big thing as well, because what I found, and John, you probably see this as well, is that at a certain level of success, for a lot of people, it's not about how much success they can gain anymore. It starts being about legacy. And how can they impact, others? How can they, really add to, helping a lot of other people succeed? So we want to see what that looks like as well. So we've got an application process. The first thing is being an accredited investor, making sure that you're within the culture of the tribe. And then we've got about a 30-day onboarding process where we really help people start getting integrated into the tribe and how to get into a GoPod, like, hey, encourage people to book a live event to come, meet up with the other guys and really experience the culture. So that's kind of what the process looks like.
All right, okay. I was interested in, because one of the comments I saw on the site was from somebody I'd actually would have a lot of time for, is Hal Elrod, who created the Miracle Morning. I just think, I think what he's created with Miracle Morning has been phenomenal. But he actually says of it, with the help of GoBundance, I've gone from saying and believing that the caliber and quality of my circle of influence is the most important thing in my world to actually aligning my life with that philosophy. I mean, that's a very, very powerful statement. And it does come back to the kind of the principle of, the people that you spend time with and the people that you actually communicate with and the people that you actually share with. That, that does kind of bring up the overall level. And, for somebody like Hal Elrod to kind of say that about GoBundance, I thought that was actually very impressive.
Yeah, and Hal is a great friend of the tribe. He and David Osborne are really close friends. They actually live maybe about 3 or 4 houses apart. All right. So they live in the same neighborhood. They hang out. Their families hang out. So he's really he's very generous with speaking with our tribe, with helping us with different things. But one thing that we realize within GoBundance is, and it goes right back to the comment that you shared about Hal, is most people don't understand how influential the people are that are in their lives. And when we look at our children, especially when they're growing up, we're really kind of, as parents, we're really aware of wanting them to spend time with the right kind of kids that can influence them in a positive way, right? We don't want them to necessarily spend time with kids that are going to get them in trouble or help them build bad habits. But somewhere along adulthood, we forget that same concept for ourselves. And one of the things, that the tribe did earlier this year, and I know we're going to be talking about different books as well, but there's actually a book called Tribe of Millionaires. And this was recently written by the tribe, and there's 6 effects that are covered in the book that are so crucial to understanding how the people in your life truly set the destiny of who you will become. And I think a lot of people just think that, well, I'm just going to do this, or I can just work harder, or it doesn't matter that this person's negatively influencing me. And what Hal said in his comment is that he absolutely realized that the people that he hung out with set the trajectory and the destiny for who he's going to become, right? And that's why we're so adamant with educating people now about the importance of who you spend time with, and why I wrote the book. And the book's written in a fable form, so it's really a story. My 10-year-old son Jackson read the book in about 2 weeks, and I mean it really changed the way he gave his teacher a copy of the book, and he's talking to his friends about it. And
fantastic.
It's written in a way that even a 10-year-old kid can essentially understand how important it is about who they spend time with. But it translates across for us as well, because one thing that I've really experienced in my life, especially since getting involved with GoBundance, is like just adding this like upward trajectory to my overall success in life. And that's not just about the amount of money that I've made or the business success that I've had. It's like, at 38 years old today, I'm healthier and more vital than I was at 30 years old. My relationship with my wife and my children are better now than it was, when I was 30 years old. And there's a lot of things that have come full circle for me. And a big part is when I'm hanging out with a lot of the GoBundance guys. I was in Austin yesterday hanging out with David and Mike McCarthy, and just being there, gave me several things to think about on my drive home. And every time I'm around people like that, it makes me want to be better, right? It makes me want to be more focused.
Yeah, because I think it's so true, and I think that when you're in the company of people that are inspiring you, they do kind of the bar gets higher, the possibilities become more possible, and yes, you begin to actually believe, because so much is about mindset as anything else. And one of the things I think that with the sort of people that you're talking in GoBundance, is that they have a mindset that they can actually achieve whatever it is they actually set out to achieve. And obstacles and challenges are just things that they come across on that journey. And I think it is great. I also think that, I was coaching somebody there the other day, and one of the things that they're in the corporate world, but I've been coaching them to manage their exit and go off and do something on their own. Very, very different to what they've been doing, because they're frustrated doing what they're doing, but the pushback that they're getting from their own network is, you're mad, you've got a secure job, you've got this, that, and the other, and I can see the impact that has, and and I just kept on going back and say, well, what do you actually want? What is it that you actually want? Are you satisfied to stay doing what you're doing, or do you actually want to make a change? But you can be influenced negatively and positively by the people that are around you, and I think you've got to be really, really careful about that. When you were talking about the book of Tribes, and the Tribe of Millionaires, and you talked about the 6 effects that are mentioned. What are the 6 that you talk about? Can you just touch on what they are?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I share the effects, I just want to go back to something you just said, which is so important, John, which is people can affect you negatively even though they believe that they're helping you, right? Yes. So this person that you were coaching, the people in their sphere are probably like, hey, you're crazy because you have this great job, you've got stability, and in their mind, they may be saying that, hey, I'm talking this person out of like doing something crazy that could cause them financial stress or cause their lifestyle to change. And yet, for that person that you're coaching, that may be the exact thing that they need to absolutely go to the next level in their life, right? So when you're looking at making changes like that, and you have people in your life that are really just wanting to keep you plugged into the status quo, it makes you really question, like, am I mad for trying to do this, right? Versus getting around people that would say, look, if that's what you truly want, go after it. And I mean, if you start experiencing some financial difficulties, or you're being challenged at a high level, that's good, because you're going to grow from that. Like that, those situations are going to be the situations that drive you to become your best, that drive you to be ultimately live your best life, right? So I think it's just important to understand that sometimes people in a very loving way, will tell you that, hey, you should just, stay on the status quo path. Hey, you've got another 10 years and then you're going to retire with a pension or whatever it is. Like, there's people that in a loving way want to help you, and yet they may be the ones that are keeping you from actually living your best life, right? So I think it's important dynamic.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that's a very kind way of you saying it. I think the other part of that, of just being a little bit more harsh about it, is that sometimes what people are doing are actually reflecting their own fears that they would never do it.
Oh, that is 100% true. That is 100% accurate, yes.
And they're actually transferring that onto them because it's something that they wouldn't want to do. I mean, I do remember when I left corporate life to set up my own business, so many people said to me that I was mad to do it, because if you're CEO of a company, you're well paid, all the bits that go with it. But those very same people 2 years down the road were actually saying, oh, God, I wish I'd done what you've done. Right. So their advice was very, very much predicated on their own situation. So sorry, I interrupt you when you're talking about the 6 effects.
No, I love that, and that's an important thing, because John, actually we're all doing that all the time. We're always, whatever situation's happening, we're always reflecting. It's a mirror, right? It's reflecting what we're dealing with and what's going on in our lives, right? It's just like when somebody does something that triggers you, it's not about what they did to trigger you. It's about what's going on within yourself that got triggered, right? So it's an absolutely accurate assessment. Yeah. Okay, so let me go through the 6 effects real quick, right? So the first effect is called the influence effect. And it states that your destiny is shaped by those around you. Right? This is kind of exactly what Hal Elrod is saying in his quote, is that, look, I realized through GoBundance that the people who I'm around actually start setting my destiny. And that's a very different way of thinking, because I think a lot of times we think that, well, I'm in charge of my destiny and I'll just work harder and do these things, but the influence effect is so powerful that it actually sets your destiny. The second effect is called the multiplier effect. And that means that the right group of people around you compound your efforts. Right? So this is kind of that synergy mode, like 1 + 1 = 4 instead of 1 + 1 = 2. Is that if you're on a path and you have the right people around you, they'll massively accelerate your success. And just let me know, John, if there's anything that you want to jump in on as I go.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's really about leverage, isn't it? I mean, that's about leveraging yourself and leveraging the people that are around you in a very positive and constructive way.
That's absolutely right. And one thing I've noticed, because I didn't come from a wealthy family, and I mean, immigrating to the United States at 14, I mean, we had nothing, right? We gave everything over to come to this country. So I didn't grow up in wealth, and now as I'm starting to spend more and more time with wealthy people, I've really realized that wealthy people always go to their network when they need something, right? They don't have to necessarily Google something or try to search out, they just go straight to the who, and they say, hey, is this something you can help me with? Or if you can't, who do I need to be talking to, right? So they're very fast in their connection, and because of that, it accelerates the speed of operation for them. So what would take somebody that doesn't have a great network 30 days to do, somebody with a great network can get the same thing done, same results in a day. And I think like that's one of those great accelerators, and that's what the multiplier effect is. The next effect is called the accountability effect, and essentially, their view is that accountability is the world's most powerful force. Because there's this thought of like, hey, I want something and I'm going to do it, and I have a goal to do it, and then you start doing the activities and you fall short, and then there's that moment of like, okay, who is there to actually challenge you past, where you're giving up? And if we look at the most successful people in the world, whether it's athletes, CEOs, executives, I mean, a big part of why a CEO or executive hires you, John, is that you're going to really help them be accountable to their goals. And what we say is that, look, you will only push yourself so far. Then you're going to need somebody to push you past where you quit, right? And that's where that accountability comes in to say, you know, 'cause to ourselves, we're the world's best salesperson. You can sell anything to yourself. You can justify anything, give yourself any reason. But when you have somebody else that's willing to step into that gap and say, listen, you're selling yourself short right now and you're giving up. Like you're accepting being mediocre in this moment when you said that you wanted to be great in this moment. So we need to talk about.
And I think that's very much the
what that
essence
looks like.
of coaching, Derek, as well, you know, because
Right.
when you think, I mean, I don't, you know, I mentioned to you, I do a lot of work in the pharmaceutical industry, right? I mean, what I know about the pharmaceutical industry is tiny. I don't come from that, right? But I understand the process, and my job as a coach is that an old saying that a mentor of mine had many years ago is about keeping people's feet to the fire. And
Right.
and it is about challenging that, you know, you said you were going to do this, you said you were going to make that breakthrough, you know, we talked about it, what have you actually done, what has been the result, what did you learn? And, you know, as a coach, I don't have kind of, you know, kind of magic dust that I sprinkle on somebody that transforms them, because I don't change anybody. I
Right.
create an environment and I facilitate people for them to change themselves. But I
That's
I
right.
do not have the power to change somebody else.
No, I think like that's the powerful thing. And John, I think like that's the mark of a great coach, right? It's not trying to change somebody. It is creating the environment where somebody plants the seed within their own mind and starts understanding where are they sabotaging themselves, right?
Yeah.
They have to realize it, and then they're the only ones that can change and actually do the activities, right? As a great coach or a facilitator, your job is to help them make those connections, and then, you know, help them be within integrity to do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah. And as
So
you say,
I think that's real
to kind of
important.
help them kind of get out of their own way very often.
Yeah,
And it's to challenge their thinking to do that.
that's exactly right, John. That's exactly right. So accountability within GoBundance, I mean, you know, we talked about that. Extreme accountability is one of the pillars with GoBundance. So it really doubles here in the Trap Millionaires. But I think the more accountable you are to, you're willing to be to what you want, the faster you'll actually get there. Okay, so the next effect is the authenticity effect, and it states that you find your true self among those that you truly trust. We had a discussion about this the other night, and we were talking about children and how children truly learn to see themselves through the way that others see them. But I think that that's true for adults as well, right? Where we can only see ourselves from a certain lens, but when we're around the right people that we truly trust, and I think that the thing behind true trust is that you are authentic and you're willing to be fully vulnerable and transparent. So when we get around the people that we are willing to be vulnerable and transparent around, and we truly trust them, then we truly start discovering who we truly are, and that's what we call the authenticity effect.
And I think that what you're talking about there also is that within the group, what I would call is that you've created that psychological safety within the group, that I can be open, I can be vulnerable, I can, you know, demonstrate I don't know, or I'm unsure, or I'm afraid, or whatever it might be. And that
That's right.
psychological safety is hugely important to the overall effectiveness of a team, as you have in the tribe.
Absolutely, and that's something that we've been very purposeful about for at least the last 3 years, is really creating the environments that maximize psychological safety, because only then can true collective genius be unlocked, right? So that's where if people aren't psychologically safe, right? If somebody raises their hand and they say something and somebody makes them feel bad or feel wrong for what they just said, which is, I mean, that's like all of corporate world, right? Then what they do is they start locking up their creative genius, and then they just show up and they're done what they're told to be done. So what we really do is create a high level of psychological safety, and that's where people feel very comfortable to say what's on their mind. There's no essence of being right or wrong. It's just like, hey, we appreciate your contribution, right? So that's where higher level collaboration really starts showing up, and that's where, you know, collective genius really is unlocked, is in creating that psychological safety.
Sure. What the subtitle to the book, which I saw, was "What if one question could change everything?" And that's just
Right.
what is that one question?
I mean, the one choice is truly, who am I going to allow to influence me? right? So if we become really clear about that one question and truly decide that, look, I'm going to make a choice, an active choice, to be very aware of who influences me day in and day out. And there may be some people that are influencing you in a really great way, and you want to increase the level of influence they have on you. Other people may be influencing you in a negative way, and what you need to do is start the process of diminishing the amount of influence they have on you. But the choice is just like really being aware of who you spend time with.
All right, okay. You said something which I was really interested in. I just would love you to elaborate on it. You said that how evolution has wired accountability into our very nature. I thought that was a really interesting sentence for you to make, and I was just curious what was in your mind when you were saying that.
Yeah, so I think as human beings, accountability, there's always been certain kind of accountabilities that have been in place, since man was created, right? And early on, I think that there were accountabilities that we had to kind of get up every day. We had to go do certain things, like meaning that if I don't actually get up and go hunt today, I'm going to go hungry, right? I have to actively make sure that I'm safe, I'm protected. And I think over time, those things were naturally kind of wired in by the environment. And what's happened over time is that, we've gotten to a place where I think a lot of people are so complacent because everything that you want is, really today at a finger tap away. And yet accountability is that thing that makes us go to the next level. It makes us better because as human nature, like David Goggins, he wrote the book Can't Hurt Me. And he talks about that as humans, our minds will shut us down at about 40% of capacity, right? Around 40% of capacity is where pain shows up. So yeah. As humans, we tend to shut ourselves down very quickly, where true accountability will push us further past that. And that's where it's wired in that if, as a human being, if we show up, if we're accountable and start moving forward, that's truly where our greatest selves are going to be unlocked.
Yeah. And I mean, I know from reading some of the stuff about GoBundance that one of the, you talk about, defining and developing your powerful purpose and, which, I understand. But for many people, they find that challenging to really develop their powerful purpose. How do you go about helping people do that?
Well, I think this is, and John, this is actually one of the 6 effects, right? Because we have the purpose effect, and that states that the right people reveal your richest sources of power. Meaning that it's going to be very difficult for somebody to be completely isolated and then all of a sudden come up with like their purpose in life. What happens is when you start getting around the right people and you start seeing yourself in a different way, you start understanding how you affect other people, how other people affect you, and you start discovering what your true power is, right? So what happens is when we start being around the right people, we can start seeing a path that's open for us. And a big part of it is, for us, is just really asking the right questions and getting down to an authentic level of, and I think this is what you were doing with your coaching client the other day, to say, what do you really want? Right? Because one of the beliefs that I have is that I believe that like our greatest purpose is already within us. We just have to discover it. It's already been given to us. Like the path's already been given. It's just a matter of us discovering it. But it's very difficult for us to discover it when we can't truly be authentic with ourselves and authentic with the people that we are around. Right? Meaning like just like your client, he may feel like he's got this purpose that he needs to go out there and become an entrepreneur and do something on his own, but yet his environment right now is not allowing him to be authentic with himself or authentic within the environment, which means that the purpose is being concealed and is being pushed away. So a big part of it is just really, for us, is being able to connect with what that is. And one, you got to learn how to be authentic with yourself, and then you have to be authentic with the people around you, because that's where the purpose is unlocked. And it's when you can be around the kind of people you say, look, I believe my purpose is, X. And even though that might say crazy and sound crazy and people be like, you are mad, you're going to have people around you and be like, that is amazing. How can I support you on getting on that journey? Like, what do you need right now? That's where I believe like our deepest purposes are unlocked, is when we truly get around the people that will support us for being crazy or wanting to do something unconventional because we truly deep down know that that's the right path for us. And you're always going to have people that say, don't go down that path. But like John, as you know, like there's no way that you could be doing what you're doing today and making the impact on so many people if you stayed in corporate world, right?
Yeah.
You had to go on that path. And then as you started finding the right people that started validating that, that's where the true purpose is unlocked.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things I'm just curious in your view, one of the things that I certainly have seen in highly successful people is their ability to focus on a single thing. That
Right.
they really are very, very good at kind of cutting out what's the most important thing they should be spending their time doing. And I know that's something that you are a great believer in, and you talk about, kind of being really religious about it and fanatical about it to kind of stay focused on the single thing that's going to drive you forward.
Yeah, I think one of the things is if people don't have purpose, they're going to say yes to just about anything that sounds
Yeah.
good. And one thing I've discovered is like highly successful people are really good at saying no. They say no way more than they say yes, right? But once they say yes to something, they automatically say no to a lot of other things. And I think it's the idea that I think today so many people want like quick gratification. They want to go down a path, and within like 60 or 90 days, they want to start experiencing some level of success. And it's like, no, like it doesn't always work like that. Like sometimes you've got to put your head down and work really hard for 3 years before you start seeing the success really start showing up. And I think that is part of the accountability and staying focused to say, look, I'm not just going to chase every squirrel or shiny object, but if I'm truly connected to something that's important to me and I have the right people around me, and I highly recommend anybody that's in business to always have a coach to help them stay focused, because I mean there's always going to be things that distract us as humans, and there's this idea of really working towards a goal or kind of operating in a mode of chaos where we're just putting out fires, right? The fires are going to be around us every day, and the bigger your business gets, the more fires you have to put out. But in spite of all those fires going on, can you still stay focused on the most important things? And that's just a day in and day out focus, right? It's connecting with who you are. And I know before the call we talked a little bit about like morning routines, and I think like that's why we love the Miracle Morning, within GoBundance. We think it's so important because as a human being, like that's where you connect with who you are and what's important to you and what are you going to do today to stay on track and stay focused, right? It's just having that little bit of focus every single day that just keeps you on track versus veering off, and then a thousand days
For
down the
those
road.
who actually aren't aware of the Miracle Morning, you might just explain exactly what that, because is that part of your own ritual and routine?
Yeah, I used to be a lot more rigid on it. I'm not quite as rigid on it anymore, but I've got certain things that I really want to do. So the Miracle Morning has a program called Savers, and right now I don't recall what all the letters stand for, but I mean a big part of the Miracle Morning is making sure that you make time for yourself every single morning, and that you connect with yourself, you connect with your purpose, and part of that is different things like getting some exercise going, journaling, asking good questions, doing things like prayer and meditation, connecting relationally with people, right? And a big part of it is like getting your energy ready in a lot of different ways, right? So a couple of things that we look at is your mental energy, your emotional energy, your physical energy, and your spiritual energy, and how that shows up when you go out into the world, because a lot of people wake up every day in a reactive mode, right? They grab their cell phone before their feet hit the ground. They're checking Facebook, they're checking emails, and already something triggers them in a bad way before their feet even hit the ground. So the whole Miracle Morning is like, look, start every morning with no outside distractions, which means you're getting up a little bit earlier. For some people, it's a 30-minute practice. For some people, it's a 3-hour practice. But the whole kind of thought behind it is how can you connect with who you are, what your purpose is, what's important to you, and what your intentions are for the day before you ever encounter, that first interaction that may set you off, because then you're way more centered, and now you can respond versus reacting, in the day and be proactive.
And how do you adopt that for yourself, Dirk? What are the rituals that you've created for yourself?
Yeah, so the first thing that I do in the morning is I get up, drink a big glass of water, make myself a cup of coffee, and then I get on my spin bike, which you can see back behind me in my office.
Very impressed.
Um, yeah, so I mean that's a part of starting my day is I love working out and getting a sweat on. After that, I typically just kind of sit, relax a little bit, and just cool off. Then I take a cold shower, and after that, I get into starting to do some journaling, meditating, planning my day, and then my goal is to spend time with my family before kids go off to school, and then I'm ready to encounter the day. And it doesn't mean that I get it right every day and that it's always consistent. I mean, life gets in the way. However, I know that the more consistent I am with my daily routine, the more energy I have and the more focus I have every day. And if I can increase my focus and energy, even 10, 15% every single day, I know that my level of success is going to be compounded 10,000%, within the next, 5 or 10 years. So
Yeah, well,
I think
I
that
must say
it's things
I'm a great believer in the rituals. I think that they do kind of set you up. I think that if you don't, I was reading something the other day that something like 64% of people get up and don't have any plan for the day. And you kind of wonder,
right.
I mean, that's kind of scary. So that, anything that comes at them just happens. So,
Right.
how can you achieve anything when you've got that sort of mindset? I mentioned before we started talking, a book other than the one you were talking about during the interview, a book that you would recommend to people that has had an impact upon you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think one of the most prolific books that's really changed my mind. I read it for the seventh time this year. Is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
All right, yeah, yeah.
and I know that that's a real classic. But I mean, every time I read that book now, there's new truths that are unlocked within it, and a deeper understanding of what happens in that book. So for me, like that is always a staple of like, look, if you want to really start changing your life and changing your mind, read that book multiple times. But I will share another one that I recently read that I think is just such an amazing story, and it's called "The Fish That Ate the Whale," and it's the story of Samuel Zemurray, and he was kind of coined the Banana King, and he built an empire in the United States between the late 1800s, through really about 1960 and became one of the richest men in America, through importing and selling bananas in the States. And it's a fascinating story. He was a Russian Jew that came to America and worked on the shipping docks in New Orleans. I mean, had nothing. And through this incredible series of events, became one of the richest men in America. But he's one of these guys that not a lot of people have ever heard about. And the story is absolutely fascinating. Like reading that story, it truly just shows you, the dynamics of building an empire. And so
Well, that's
it's called
one
The Fish.
definitely for my list. That's one definitely I'll get because I haven't come across that before, and I'd love to. I find it really interesting what you're saying about Think and Grow Rich because I agree with you. I mean it's been around for an awfully long time, but it is extraordinarily timeless, isn't it? I mean, extraordinarily
Absolutely.
timeless. You
Yes.
know,
I mean, like
so
some
I
of the
mean,
words they use in the book we don't use today anymore, but
no,
the
absolutely.
principles
But I
are
think that
timeless.
don't
Absolutely.
dismiss it because some parts of it reads a bit old-fashioned. I think the messaging in it is really powerful. Dirk, listen, I've gone way over the time that I said we would, and I really want to thank you for spending time with me. It's been a great interview. It's been full of content. I know the audience are going to love it. How can they actually reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so for me, two ways. Either go to GoBundance.com, GoBundance, GoBundance.com, or BERGflow.com, BERGFLOW.com. Those are the two businesses that we're very actively involved in. You can get my contact info on there. But yeah, would love to just connect with any of your listeners that found value, or if they want more information on GoBundance, how to join the tribe. I'd love to visit with them about that as well.
Great. Okay. Well, listen, thank you, and we'll talk real soon. We'll come back and do another one.
Yeah, John, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.